where we've been. Over the past few days, we have been talking about the Caribbean and looking at where places are and how people live. So now we're going to move into what's something that's kind of extreme in regards to like the weather that they have to deal with. So here in Illinois, we don't have to deal with a huge, what's called as a tropical cyclone. Okay, so who can tell me what a tropical cyclone is? Les?
Isn't it like a hurricane?
Hurricane. So that's more of a common name for it. Exactly. So what does anybody know what else it could be called? Because it's called. You said typhoon. Go ahead, Grant. There's one other.
Monsoon?
No. No. What's a tsunami?
A giant wave.
Like a giant wave, right? That's coming out. You know, that's usually caused from what?
Earthquakes.
An earthquake, right? What's the other one?
Tropical cyclones, hurricanes.
So tropical cyclones,
Right.
is the big term. So that's that's the scientific name of all of these. So you've got a
Hurricane, typhoon,
cyclone. So let's talk about those real quick. Where are those located? So when you hear of a hurricane, where do we hear that term usually called? In the Atlantic Ocean, right? So when you hear, for instance, like Hurricane Maria coming up, that's usually coming from Africa, right? And it's coming across the Atlantic and then coming up through the Caribbean, and sometimes coming up through Florida or Texas or somewhere in the Gulf Coast, right? So where else can you find what we would call here in America hurricanes? The Northeast, they usually call those like nor'easters, right? It's basically the same thing, but it's more of a winter event. But there's a specific geographic area where they also call hurricanes, where a tropical cyclone is also called a hurricane. Any ideas?
Asia? Like Southeast Asia?
No. It's closer to home.
Oh.
Closer to home. So the Eastern Pacific, right?
Oh.
So like you'll have. So we've talked about those. So for a hurricane, you'll always see the Atlantic Ocean is where they call those, and then the Eastern Pacific. So you'll have stuff coming in through Mexico and Baja California, or that area south of California in regards to that. What about a typhoon? Where do we hear those called? Yes.
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia. Right. So specifically more in the Western Pacific. Okay. And then what about a cyclone? Where do we find what they call as a cyclone? Anybody have an idea? Iowa? No, it's not Iowa. And unfortunately, it's not Iowa. That's kind of a different cyclone. If you're going to Iowa State, Kansas is always beating them, but that's a different story. Where else where do you think you could find a cyclone? Yes. Yes, exactly. So Indian Ocean. So you have all of these things. They are the same thing. So if you hear the word cyclone, or you hear the word hurricane, or you hear the word typhoon, those are all tropical cyclones. Okay. So let's figure out how it begins. So basically, a hurricane is going to start out as a single thunderstorm. So it's just one little thunderstorm wandering around the ocean, going around. Okay. When that ocean temperature really starts building up, gets 80 degrees, typically 80 degrees, we're here in shorts, t-shirts, enjoying the day. But out in the ocean, that's when they start to really build up. And so you'll start seeing thunderstorms clustering up, and this is when you'll see it become what's called the tropical disturbance. Okay. Then it'll still continue to grow in strength, and then it'll start rotating in that counterclockwise motion. So, on a clock, we don't have one in here, but it's going this way. Your clock normally goes this way, right? So, counterclockwise, we're going backwards. Okay? And that's because of that low pressure. So, a low pressure system always rotates in the northern hemisphere in that counterclockwise motion. Okay? So, once those winds start circulating, that's when you see it become a tropical depression. Okay? So we talked about that. Still continuing to build up. Once those wind speeds reach 39 miles an hour, so just under 40, it is now classified as a tropical storm. Okay. Then if you still have that environment where they're getting that warm, moist air, that water temperature over 80 degrees, and that wind starts really building up, you'll start seeing it become a tropical cyclone. So once again, if it's in the Atlantic or the Eastern Pacific, it's called hurricane. Okay. So what we're going to do is this: we're going to go over kind of the parts of what is the tropical cyclone, and we're actually going to create a model using ourselves to demonstrate what a tropical cyclone is and looking at the movement of the cyclone. Okay, but there's three parts that we need to really have an understanding of. First off is the eye. Who can tell me what the eye is? Yeah.
The center of the most energy.
The center. Okay. Can you describe what it's like in the eye at all?
Like a lot of, well, aerial view is like white. Like
Just what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? If you were in the eye of a hurricane, what do you think the weather would be like?
horrible.
Horrible. Okay. What?
Isn't it like nothing's happening? Almost sunny and dead.
Dead. Sunny. Leslie, do you have something? What were you thinking?
I don't know. I was gonna say it's like the beginning of like where it started. So
Right.
it's really like intense.
Okay. So it's intense. Okay.
It's really calm in the eye of the storm, and you can see like a blue sky above you, and it's just like a calm day.
Yeah.
Except everywhere
It's
there's a wall
like-
of
exactly.
stuff around you.
It really is. It's really neat to see that, to be in that eye, even just for a few minutes. Yeah, you don't want to see everything else that's around there, but for those few minutes, it's really calm and just it's like a normal day, except you're seeing a lot of things on the outside. What about the eye wall? Where's the eye wall located? Yeah,
Isn't that just the outer rim of the eye?
outer rim of the eye. Exactly. So that's that outer rim part in regards to that. And then the rain bands. What's a rain band? Who can kind of describe what a rain band is?
So like they kind of like spiral off into the center, sort of. So it's like it's literally like a band of rain that kind of
Yeah.
goes in.
Yeah, so it's spiraling, it's moving in that counterclockwise motion and, rotating around the eye and the eye wall in regards to that. So those are great things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create this. We're gonna basically create this. So what I'm gonna have you do is you're gonna each number off, starting at 1. We're gonna number off and we're gonna create basically the whole life cycle of a tropical cycle. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with you. 1,
2,
3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, if you are 1, you need to stand up. I want you to come here in the middle of the class. Okay. So this, to begin with, is our thunderstorm. Okay, so this is how it would start. So he can do rain, he can make lightning, thunder, all those fun things. Okay. So now, I want the next 3 people to come up. Alright. And I want you to get close together. But be respectful of personal space.
Wait, like all of us?
Yes, all of you together. So now we have a cluster of thunderstorms, right? So we have multiple thunderstorms. They're all together, and they're building strength. They're starting to build strength, right? So yeah, there we go. Yeah, Sean's working those arms a little bit, so he can be a little bit stronger. So that's great. So now we have that. All right. So now I want the rest of you to all. Hang on. So now we're going to move into. So we've got our clustered thunderstorms. Now we're going to start moving into what was that tropical depression, right? So what I'll have you do is the 3 of you, Patrick, you're going to come in the middle, since you're now kind of the center storm. So you are going to be the eye.
Oh yeah.
And then 3 of you are going to be the eye wall.
Here we go.
Okay? So you're going to slowly start spinning around.
Yeah.
You can hold hands if you want.
That would be good.
So we can play Ring Around the Rosie. Okay, so we have an eye that's nice and calm and relaxed.
You're definitely recording.
Whereas the rest of the group is starting to rotate. All right, now we're going to add the rest of you. So everybody stand up. No, you don't have to. We're not playing music yet. Okay, so you're going to surround them. You are going to surround the rest of the group. Yes, that's why I kind of tried to give us some more space in regards to this. You all are going to be the rain bands. Okay, now the other key part to this too is where are the strongest winds? Where? In the eye wall. So, if you're part of the eye wall, what do you think you could do to create more wind? You can spin faster.
We could just like keep spinning.
Exactly. So the reason I want you to do that is I want you to realize that that's where the strongest winds are. So you guys will be blowing out air as you're rotating around. The rest of you can make rain. You can, do whatever you want, and you're all going to rotate around. Okay, so go ahead. Let's see if we can do this right. So we're all rotating around in a counterclockwise motion. We've got strong winds. We've got lots of breeze. There's some thunder. I can't do lightning.
I want to be the eye.
Okay.
I want to be the eye.
All right. So we're dancing around. This is kind of fun. So real quick. So why do you think that we did this? Right. So we've got our eye, which is nice and calm. We've got our eye wall that's giving us the idea of we've got strong winds, we've got powerful storms right here at that eye wall. And then we've got our rain bands. And this is where a lot of danger comes in. This is where you see a lot of tornadoes spinning up. This is where you see a lot of flooding because of all the rain that's coming down and because it's constant weather and precipitation coming in these rain bands. So, what questions do you guys have in regards to this? Yes?
Why does it spin counterclockwise?
Because of low pressure system. So a hurricane is, and a tropical cyclone is basically, it's a very strong low pressure system. If you're familiar with meteorology at all, low pressure systems, at least here in the northern hemisphere, they will typically rotate in that counterclockwise motion. When you have a high pressure system, it rotates clockwise. So for those students that are taking meteorology, you would have that knowledge and know that the way that the pressure systems work in regards to that rotation.
So in the northern hemisphere, it's counterclockwise, and clockwise in the southern hemisphere.
Have you ever heard stories of if you're in the southern hemisphere and you flush a toilet, which way does the water go?
Isn't it always? I don't think it depends on the hemisphere.
What's the common myth?
Oh, that it spins the opposite direction. Australia, they spin it back.
Same exact thing. Same exact thing. So, what other questions do you have? Yes.
We're the high or the low pressure, and then they are, or like is it?
The pressure is lowest right here. That's the lowest amount of what they call barometric pressure. So that's the lowest center of pressure in regards to.
So then we're a low pressure system.
This is all, no. This is all one, this whole big thing is one big low pressure system. But what we're doing here is whenever you see a tropical cyclone, whether it's in the Caribbean or the Pacific, and anywhere really, the lowest barometric pressure is always at the center. And it will be a little bit higher as you go out, but it's still very low relative to everywhere else that's around. And once one of these storms comes in, you will start seeing that barometric pressure dropping constantly until the eye passes. Once the eye is passed, that barometric pressure will start to rise.
I don't know if you did any research on this, but how long on average does it take a hurricane to form?
It varies. It varies on a lot of different environmental factors, such as temperature, in regards to what the air temperature is, what the water temperature is, because these all typically form over warm water. So depending on where that temperature is at. Okay. So that's one thing just to kind of keep in mind. I mean, the warmer that temperature is, the more evaporations is going to occur, and it's going to build that up. So, yes.
So with climate change being a
is for tomorrow, you guys have these questions to answer off of our model and off of our lecture.
Good.
So you guys go ahead and work on that for the next few minutes. Does anybody need a writing utensil?